Authorship, the auteur theory. What is an auteur? The term auteur is French, meaning author. We can understand easily the idea of the author of a book or play, as it's usually one individual who's written the work. For example, David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, or the play Hamlet by William Shakespeare. However, in cinema, where many people contribute to the production, it's not always so straightforward. The scriptwriters may create the story and build the characters. However, it is the director who shapes and realises the final product that we see on screen. Think about some examples of films where the same story has been filmed at different times by different directors. How are these versions different? What kind of mood or atmosphere is there? What kind of style? How are the themes or ideas explored? Here's an example, the Batman story. Originally made into a TV series in the 1960s, then in the 1980s filmed by Tim Burton. Later on, Christopher Nolan with his Dark Knight trilogy, and finally Matt Reeves in 2022 with his version of the Batman. All the same basic stories, the same basic characters, but with many variations, many different feels, many different aspects of the stories emphasised. Another example would be the Dune stories by Frank Herbert. David Lynch directed Dune in 1984, and then later on Denis de Villeneuve in 2021. Again, two completely different versions with different kind of feel, different kind of style to tell the same story. To recap then, an author in film theory is nearly always a director. This does not mean all directors are considered to be authors, however. The auteur director is one who brings to the film signs of their own individuality, perhaps in the way the narrative is constructed, the way certain themes are explored, or in the visual style. Beyond this, there is an understanding that the author is able to function as the main creative force and controlling presence. Authorship theory, then, is the idea that some directors are able to put their own personal stamp or signature onto a film. They take the rough material and create something particular from it. Authorship theory was also very important in establishing that film could be regarded as an art form equal to literature, painting and music. Here are some directors who could be considered as auteurs. I'm sure you recognise some of these familiar faces. Clockwise from top left, Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, Stanley Kubrick, Spike Lee and Greta Gerwig. However, there are some issues in terms of authorship. Within certain kinds of cinema, most obviously independent and art house, an auteur approach appears justified. However, in relation to Hollywood, this idea of authorship is more debatable. Why do you think this might be? Well, it's for a number of reasons. Authorship certainly makes more sense in lower budget productions where there are less people involved. Authorship and film as an art form might also be seen at odds with the commercial nature of the Hollywood film industry. Many directors do not have very much control in some productions. All of these issues question the legitimacy of the authorship idea. So, how and why did authorship theory emerge? Let's look at a little bit of history and background to the ideas. Key to the whole development of the theory of authorship was a crucial movement in cinema history, the French New Wave. There was a rise of interest in French intellectuals in cinema since the end of World War I, and then after World War II there was a new interest in film. Under the German occupation of France, there hadn't been many American films, so in the late 1940s, early 50s, there was a flood of US films, including classics like Citizen Kane and The Maltese Falcon. There was also a rise of cinema clubs, societies, groups who discussed films, and serious film magazines and journals. Two of the key theorists at this time were André Bazin and Alexander Astruc. Bazin saw deep focus and long takes of some of the films made in Hollywood as very important as part of a distinctive cinematic style, that is, something that could only be achieved in film. French cinema of the time was dominated by what was called a cinema of quality, very big budget, quality films, often based on literary classics. There were some directors who had a different kind of more cinematic vision, Jean Renoir, Max Ophuls amongst them, and it was this group who were more influential on the young, up-and-coming filmmakers. It was at this time that the theory of authorship emerged. Alexander Astruc looked at film as a medium of personal expression, like literature. He celebrated this in a 1948 essay where he used the phrase camera stilo or camera pen. He referred to the way the filmmaker could use film language to convey meaning and feeling to the audience. A young man who was later to become a key director in the French New Wave took this further. In 1954, François Truffaut wrote an essay in Cahiers du Cinéma, a very influential French magazine, entitled A Certain Tendency in French Cinema, that endorsed Astruc's ideas by advocating what he called the auteur approach. Truffaut argued that the average unremarkable director merely translates a pre-existing work onto film, but an auteur can transform the material. In the process, the director makes it their own, especially remarkable when considering that these directors were working within the commercial Hollywood studio system. Writer-directors and directors who shape pre-existing material according to this distinctive creative sensibility are therefore auteurs. So, to summarise, authorship theory identified the importance of the way the filmmaker can be daring and creative within the medium of cinema. Also, it was possible for popular films to be works of art.